So the whole idea behind programming and doing all the things that we've been learning is everything is centered around data, right? Information, streams. In this video, we're going to talk about the Java I/O stream classes. Now, the I/O package, which contain all these classes, we've been using it for a while now, except that it's all implicitly included in all of our Java programs, okay? So, and we've been using some of the classes actually from the I/O, which is input and output. For instance, the system.out that we always use is part of one of the classes in the I/O package. So when we talk about the I/O stream classes, so they allow us to connect, read, output, input to and from files. Okay, so for instance, we could have a text file somewhere in our computer, our device, and if we want to write to that file or read from that file, we most likely will use the Java I/O package classes. Okay, now there's different kind of streams that we can read and write using Java, right? So there's byte streams and there's character streams. The byte streams, as the name implies, deals more with byte size information, and the character streams obviously deals more with characters like strings and so forth. The classes used to deal with the byte streams and character streams are essentially the same in the sense that they all do the same thing because we're dealing with stream of data, right? It's just that the character stream classes tend to be a little bit more easier to use, okay? But under the hood, everything actually use byte streams. All the classes that are needed to manipulate both character and byte streams are essentially read for byte streams, okay? Because that's the base essence of all data. Okay, now enough with all this talking. Let's see some example. Let me show how to read the array of bytes that we get from our keyboard. Here, what we can do, we're gonna go and create a byte type variable here. We're gonna call data. Okay, it's going to be an array, so we're going to say new byte array, and we're going to give it a size of 10. That way we know exactly what we're going to be using and not allocating more than we need. Okay, so now we have data array of type byte, and the size is going to be 10. Okay, so now if we go ahead and say, let's go ahead and say system.out println, we can say enter some characters. Okay, and now here we can say again system dot. Now notice what we're going to do here. If you look, we have in as one of the methods, right? System.in in its type of input stream, which comes from the system class. Okay, so that's what we need. We want system.in dot read. We just want to read a stream of data type byte. So we pass the data byte here array. Now we have this error here, right? So let's click on it. It says here add throws declaration. Why is that? Well, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, there's no guarantee that this will work. There's no guarantee that the keyboard is connected or the keyboard will be able to actually send all the stream bytes that we need to fetch. Therefore, Java is smart enough to say, well, if you're talking about streaming in or getting system.in or reading stuff, we have to be very careful. We have to be protective. We have to create this application in a way that if something happens, we are able to catch issues. Okay, so here it's saying we have to add throws declaration. So if you click on that, click enter, right away you see in our public main here void, it says throws IO exception. So this throws here is just a keyword that says this method will throw an exception. Okay, it's very important, and it requires you to do so before the error goes away here. All right, so now as you can see, the moment we added this throws exception there, we are good to go. So we can proceed. Now we can go ahead and say system that, and we can pass you entered. Go ahead, and here we can say for. Okay, it just completed everything there. We can just go ahead at the bottom here, say system. You can say data and pass in I. Okay, so we're gonna have a problem here. Save. Let's go ahead and run. Now, notice what happens here. It's showing us these numbers here. these bytes? Well, these are bytes. So if we run again and say enter some characters, hello world, and enter, you enter this. And you may ask, well, this is just junk. Well, yeah, in a sense it's junk, but this is bytes. Remember we said here to print the bytes. Now, how do we actually show the actual characters? Now, if we want to see the character that we enter, which are hello world, we will have to cast this data, which is a bunch of stream of bytes, into characters that we can actually see and understand. Now, we haven't talked about casting, but think of casting as of saying, okay, I do understand that this item here is of type A, but I want it to actually look more like type B. That way I can use it for something else, but it will still be whatever it is. Okay? How do we cast? How do we transform something that is more like B into something that is C, but still is a B thing, if that makes any sense? How we do it? So here, if we want to transform or to translate per se this to be a char, we say char, right? Like this. So we put parentheses, say char and data. So what are we saying? We're saying whatever is to the right, it's going to be of type char so that we can print it. Now, if we save this and run, look what's going to happen. We're going to go and say hello world and enter. Look at that. Hello world. Now, here's the thing. You notice it says hello world. There's no D. Do you remember what we did here? We said 10. So this array of type byte data here, it only has 10 spots. Therefore, this hello world is entire, including the space, it's 10. So H is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That means the D is not going to show because we say, well, this array is just going to only hold 10 spots. Now, check this out. If I put 11 here and save and run again and say hello world and enter, look at that. Hello world. All the letters are there. Isn't that awesome? Here, I was able very simply, and it's not very complicated because we've seen this before, but there's certain things that we've done here that's a little bit different. So what are we saying here? We say system.in.read. So we are reading whatever it's being passed inside of our console, our command. Okay, in this case, if it's hello world, we are reading that input inside of our system.in. We are reading all in, right, and hold inside, and then we go back and then we iterate through our data because now this data will have stuff because we put stuff in it, right? And then we are displaying it. But as we display it, as we saw, if we display just as data I, meaning that going through this array of type byte, we will see those numbers, which are actually bytes in memory. In order for us to actually see the characters or the strings, we then need to cast our array, which has all those bytes, into characters. And then we'll be able to see the actual characters, the words. So what I just showed you here now is part of the I/O package classes. So we're able to read information, bytes that we're getting from our keyboard and display them. Now, with this information, as simple as this may be, we can now start progressing and understanding other side of things here, which is we can now read and write files using byte streams. Because if you think of byte streams, literally, they are just streams of bytes of information. There are classes built just for that inside of our I/O package classes, okay? So we have the file input stream and file output stream that we are going to use to write and read from files. Now, all these files are usually on a disk. So in the next video, we are going to dive into reading and writing using the file input stream classes. All right, so I'll see you in a bit.